Hi, I'm Amy. Thank you for tuning in. And today I'm joined by one of my absolute favourite authors, Kendare Blake, because we are going to be talking about the YA Book Club pick for September. So thank you so much for coming on to chat. I'm so looking forward to chatting about this book with you.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited that you guys decided to read it for September.
Yeah, I mean, I started the book club in January, and I remember I messaged you and said, I'm thinking about doing the book in, I think it was April or May, and you said, if you wait till September, there's some exciting news. And it was because the new edition of the book was coming out. Do you have it?
Yes.
To hand to us? So, I mean, I sent this as one of my comic covers. I was like, can you make my first Mina book look this beautiful, please? So I do really love this cover, but that one is beautiful as well. Like, it's really amazing to think you have two gorgeous editions.
She's just a little refresher. Yeah, I mean, how lucky could a book get? I mean, how lucky can a 16-year-old murdered teenager get? She's very lucky. She's been blessed twice. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I was really pleased with how it turned out.
Sorry, I just interrupted you. I'm so excited to talk about these books. I'm like, so we already did an interview about Buffy. So if anybody wants to check that out, I think we mainly talked Buffy books, but also we got on a real Buffy tangent. So if anyone would like to enjoy that, I'll link that in the description of this as well. But we're here mainly to talk about Anna and then a few of your other books. So for anybody who hasn't read Anna, can you tell us a little bit about the duology?
Yes, it's hard because Anna Dressed in Blood was my first novel and it came out in 2011. Whoa. So all of a sudden being able to talk about it again after 12 years is kind of crazy. And they let me write a continuation of it, which is in the back of this edition. I wrote an entirely new novella set about 10-ish years after the conclusion of the second book. And that was really weird to go back to these characters in this world and find them, 10 years older, but still totally familiar. So Anna Dressed in Blood is the story of a teenage ghost hunter named Casla Wood. And he travels the country with his mom, who is a kitchen witch, and his spirit sniffing cat. And he has a knife that kills the murderous dead. So he inherited this knife from his father, who was killed by a ghost in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And he finds these tips. He'll hear tips about ghosts who are particularly strong and can become corporeal and have the ability to kill the living. So when he hears about one of these particular ghosts named Anna Dressed in Blood in Thunder Bay, Ontario, he goes up there to kill her. Unfortunately, when he finds her, she's much stronger than he thought, and she just beats his ass, and he has to regroup and come up with an entirely new plan. And maybe along the way, he will make friends for the very first time in his life. So yeah, Anna Dressed in Blood.
It is one of those really rare books. Like, I often enjoy books a lot. It's one of those books that I actually love. And like, I was trying to think, what is it about that makes it so magical? And for me, I think it's that intersection between the plot just never lets up. Like, they have nice quiet moments, but it all feels really purposeful. I love the characters and like all the things you're saying, like Baton Rouge, like murderous ghosts. It's like all of my, if you'd thrown in some vampires that might have, maybe been overkill, but otherwise it's kind of all my favorite things. And I was just wondering, like, it's one of the early YA books I read, and it still stands out as one of the best ones for me. Like, what do you think it is about Anna that's had that lasting impact? Like, why are people still reading it and why they're doing new editions of it?
I have no idea. You just hope that, somebody will like it. You hope that one person will like it. And it was my first book, so my only hope was that it would do well enough that they would maybe let me write another book of any type, And she did okay. Right out the gate, Cassandra Clare, like the wonderful, amazing Cassandra Clare, blurbed it out of nowhere. And Holly Black blurbed it as well. And these were two like huge, amazing authors that I so admired. And then once they kind of started recommending it, my publisher was like, "Ooh, maybe this book can do something." I have no idea why it's persevered. Maybe it's because, spooky season comes around every year. So every year Anna kind of has like a moment where she gets back on these spooky book lists and people keep rediscovering her. Like, so she's got, if your book is seasonal, it's got a little bit more more legs than it would have otherwise. But yeah, I mean, she's done well. I'm proud of her.
I mean, I'm just trying to think. I'm so bad at math. So I think, did it come out a little later in the UK? Was it like 2012 or 13 maybe?
Probably.
Yeah, so I read it when it first came out on my Kindle, and I've reread it like multiple times over the years. And as well, it seems like it could still be a modern YA book. Like the references are now like vintage as opposed to being current pop cultural references, which I do feel a bit salty about, especially when like my book's set in the 90s and I'm asked to do historical fiction talks occasionally, and I'm like, that's not history, that's like recent. Yeah, so I think that's the only thing, and like you get away with it because they're like Buffy references, and they kind of, you chose the cool cult things to refer to. So I think it could still be a modern book that's just making like cool references. So I think that's it too. Like, I know people have said to me that it really reminds them of Supernatural, and I thought that when I was reading it too. But I know we talked about this earlier, and like it just kind of happened to be that beautiful. Like they came out at a similar time, but I think they're very different. But they explore kind of some similar issues of family and stuff like that, don't they? As well as the ghosts.
Oh yeah, well, and I really didn't watch any Supernatural or kind of have any idea what it was about until after I had written the second Anna book. And then after enough people had said like, oh, did this start out as like Supernatural fan fiction? I'm like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're saying. I watched it and I was like, damn it. Because Kaz is very much like a young Dean. Like I totally get why people would think that. They are very similar. And his name is Kaz. And there's a character named Kaz. And Anna is like a woman in white. And they do like episodes about women in white. And they have at some point a knife that kills demons. And I have a knife that kills the dead. So lots of similar. There's even in the first chapter, Kaz borrows a muscle car from a man named Mr. Dean. That was a total freaking coincidence. I named that character after Dean Moriarty from On the Road. But now people think like, look at that Supernatural Easter egg. I'm like, no, that.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that scene as well is very much like one of the Supernatural scenes where I think Dean does a similar thing where he takes a ghost for a drive, and she is a woman in white, so she's more the Anna than the ghost, like the hitchhiking ghost. I think this happens though in popular culture. Like, we're all a similar kind of person who loves Buffy and loves, like, you know, Scream, and we've kind of soaked up similar influences, and like we've all read Dracula and Interview the Vampire and stuff. So, and I know this is Ghost, but it's that kind of similar vibe. So I think maybe we just all kind of draw from similar source material. Like, but I love it, and I love the fact that people think that it's like it fits in so beautifully because they're both like great. I couldn't pick between Anna and Supernatural, I don't think so. It's nice that
it makes for a great comp, you know, because if I'm asking, like, if I'm meeting people and they're like, do you think I would like it? I'm like, well, do you like Supernatural? And if they at all say yes, I'll be like, yeah, I feel confident recommending this book to you.
And if they say no, you just walk away because who doesn't like Supernatural?
Like, well, then
that's a red flag.
Let me try another tack. Yeah. Like,
thing is, though, you've written so many genres, so I feel like if they said no, horror isn't my thing, you can go, well, let me tell you about my fantasy.
Yeah,
so
I do have like other things to offer you if you don't like ghosts.
I'm a one-trick pony. Like, if they don't like vampires, I'm done. It's like, oh, okay, talk to somebody else. So yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because I am definitely like, I fall into this paranormal, murdery, mystery area, and maybe I'll write outside at some point, but so far I haven't had that urge. What is it that kind of gives you that urge to write across genres, and like, how do you do it? Well, I kind of just want to learn from you, basically.
I read a lot of different genres, so I think that's where the urge comes. Like, if you love a particular kind of story, you know, those particular kinds of stories can seed in your brain. And I'm not one of those authors who has a million different ideas, so I have maybe one idea every couple of years that I really want to pursue. I might have other, like, you know, like, oh, that sounds neat. And then I'll never think of it again, you know. But if the ideas that really stick with me and be like, yeah, I keep thinking about this. Yeah, I'm probably going to write this at some point. Like, yes, I've been thinking about this at least several times a week for 6 months. I'm going to write this. Those kinds of ideas. I mean, when you have that kind of you just have to write it. And sometimes it's horror, sometimes it's fantasy.
So it's not necessarily about, so you don't sit and think, I'm going to write a fantasy next. Like it's just where the idea takes you.
It's just what it is. I had the ideas for All These Bodies and Three Dark Crowns at almost the same time. I actually had the idea for All These Bodies first, but it was just a jumbled mess. And it didn't really know what it wanted to be yet. It was just like, I'm this. And I'm like, you're too weird. And it was like, well, you know, and then Three Dark Crowns showed up and it was very well behaved. It's like, I'm this and this and this. I'm 3 queens. We turn 16. We kill each other. We each have a different magical power. My name is this. My name is this. And my name is this. And I was like, well, bless you, child. You showed up very, very ready to go in a nice little package. So when I told my agent about both of those ideas, she listened to me when I was trying to explain the mess that was All These Bodies at that point. And then her face lit up when I mentioned, you know, the triplet queens on the magical island who murder each other. And she's like, write that one. So I did. So occasionally the ideas will overlap. But as soon as I was finished with Three Dark Crowns, that little weird All These Bodies like demanded its time. And that's why I did that next, is because I just had to. It was still there. It hadn't left. It was never going to go away. The only way to get rid of it is to write it.
It's like exercising your story demons. Like eventually one day they will stop haunting you and they will need to come out into the world.
Mm-hmm. They just start to get really pushy and bothersome. There was never going to be any way that I could have shoved it away and like done something else before it. Like it would not have allowed it. So
yeah, the idea that I'm working on now that I'm not going to talk about publicly because I just don't do that but you know about it. I thought of that before Buffy and I was like, I think that's a great idea, but I have no idea how to do it. And over the years, I've kind of tried and failed so many times. And all of a sudden I started last year again and I was like, oh, I know how to do this now. I've learned. Like I must have grown as a writer a little bit. So I think some stories, like, I know it's good, but I'm not ready to tell it. Like I've got an adult fiction idea and I've never written adult before. I've tried and it's always turned into YA. And the same, I think I'm the same as you. I have like a good idea and it has to sit there for a little while. And I only had this one a few months ago. So it's probably got at least 6 months before I can even attempt to write it. Whereas my friend Mia, who I put the anthology together with, she's messaging me all the time. Like, I've had a new book idea. I've had a new book idea. And she's the opposite problem. I sometimes don't have enough ideas. She's like, she has so many that sometimes she's like, which one do I go for? And I find it so interesting that we all come out with books at the end of the day, but they kind of come from really different places.
Yeah. Yeah. Like sometimes I'm very envious of those writers because I'll be sitting around and somebody will ask me like, what's next? And I'll be like, no clue. You know, like that's kind of where I am at the moment. Post release of my new fantasy Champion of Fate, my agent's like, what are we doing? And I'm like, I don't know.
Here it is.
Yes.
In case someone needs some information. I wobble my screen every time I grab these. Yes, I'm so excited. This is my November, like, I'm good because fantasy, I have to work my way up to it because it's, you know, big, chunky books. But yes, this is my post-spooky season cleanse. After I've read all, like, the horror, I'm going to read this to, like, bridge me back into other books. Yeah, I'm glad you're in the same position as me because I do feel sometimes that panic. And then this little nagging idea will come, and I find it often happens when I'm talking to other writers, like my anthology story idea. Mia, of course, was all sorted. She had hers, like this Polish story inspired by her heritage, werewolves, Little Red Riding Hood. I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to write. Maybe I'll write a story called The House with Teeth. And she's like, that's weird. Where did that come from? And I was like, I don't know. Why would a house have teeth? That's gross. And it just, talking to her, like the ideas person, like put that in my head. And then I couldn't stop thinking about that really weird title. Like, why would I think that? And yeah, I think that I had to do on a bit of an accelerated time scale, but because I was so interested in what this weird thing was, it kind of, that came together a bit quicker. But yeah, generally I don't have lots of ideas. But yeah, you'll get there. You'll be watching a film or something and something will just ping in your head and that'll be the seed, won't it? That in 6 months you can probably
it's just like you'll read an interesting news article or you'll read an interesting thing in a science journal or like, you know, they'll find some new deep sea creature and you'll be like, and then you'll push it away and you won't think about it again. And then later on, it'll work its way into whatever story that you're. Yeah, I love it though that the house has teeth. I love it when a whole concept can come together off of a title, because sometimes that does happen. Anna Dressed in Blood. That's how that happened.
I was going to ask you. So literally, did that phrase just pop into your head and you went, what the hell? Or like, was that it?
The ghost of her popped into my head one day, and I knew that her name was Anna Dressed in Blood. And I knew that I wanted to write about her because she was very scary. And then I just needed, like, well, but how will I write about her? And then I knew I needed a ghost hunter to just like shove in her house and see what happened. And that's the entire premise of the book is, hey kid, I want to take you and shove you in this house and see if you survive it. Good luck.
Oh, Cass.
Yeah,
I know. So lovely. And you just like,
I love to stuff him in places. That's my joy. In the new novella, I stuff him into a haunted hotel. Ah, bless him. I bet he wishes he never started talking to me again.
Oh, I love that. There's a Rainbow Rowell story in Scattered Showers, which is like her character sitting in her head and talking and like, do you think she'll pick me next? Like, oh, I don't think I'm like a lead character. I think maybe I'll be like a boring best friend. And it's genius. I love this idea of our characters are just like sitting there. Like, I sometimes think Mina's like, why? Like Jared, people say to me all the time, why are you so mean to Jared? I'm like, because I have to be. Otherwise, you're not going to want to read the books. I'm sorry. I made him likable so I could do horrible stuff to him. Like, that was my whole, like, thank you for liking him. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to keep the third book. Like, at some point, he's got to have a good day. Poor Jared. But that's what's going to motivate Mina. And the same with Cass. Like, is that mutual? Like, you're going to have to do bad things to Anna to make Cass angry. And then, you know, like, they're never going to get a happy time of it, those poor kids.
I know. People have asked since the beginning, people have asked for a third Anna book. You know, and I know why they want it. And they want it because they want Anna and Cass to have their happy ending. Like, of course. That's what I want too. But practically speaking, it can't happen. Like, it can't happen, like, right. I keep trying to think, like, well, you know, maybe someday. But it's like, if he dies and they're together, well, that's not really happy for him, is it?
No.
And if he just spends his entire life, like, just pining for this dead girl, well, that's not exactly happy for him either. But part of him, that's what I realized. I'm like, well, part of him always will be just kind of pining for her and waiting for, you know, just in case he ever sees her again. So I kind of addressed that in the novella, just like, hey, Thomas and Carmel are kind of like, hey, don't you think you need to move on? And he's like, why? Why would I do that?
Oh, because he's cast and he's like a romantic under his hard exterior. Oh,
yeah, he's just a sap deep down, that kid. I always knew it. So,
but I think it's that rom-com thing, though, isn't it? That if the couple gets together too early, like you know, you want them to be together. Like, I was obsessed with the TV show Bones. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler at this point to say, like, they so it's Angel, David Boreanaz, and Emily Deschanel. I always get them mixed up. And it's like, will they, won't they? And as soon as they will, I'm like, bored now. Like, I'm Vampire Willow, I'm gone. Like, bored now. And I think sometimes it is that thwarted love. It's the Romeo and Juliet, isn't it? That if they were happy from the beginning, it wouldn't be Romeo and Juliet. Like, there wouldn't be that hook.
Soon as they can't be together, I'm all in. Like, that is my romance trope. Like, that's what will get me. I remember during the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, you know, you had this whole thing between Elizabeth and Will, Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley, from the whole startup. And they're lovely people and they're lovely to look at. And up until the last movie, I didn't give two shits about them because, but as soon as he became like the captain of the Flying Dutchman and he couldn't see her for 10 more years, I was like, no.
Yeah, I know. Suddenly it becomes really important.
Sad. Yeah, like, you have to stay with her. Where before I'm like, drown her, I don't care. It's like,
and that's the thing with Anna. Normally, anybody will, like, I'll tell anybody that if a book is too sad for me, I can't bear it. Like, I DNF'd Grady Hendrix's most recent book, the first Grady DNF ever, because it was too sad. I was like,
oh wait, which one is this?
How to Sell a Haunted House. And it depends what your sadness level is. Like,
I love sad. I love a sad book.
So if you're fine with sad, but Anna is super sad, but I still love it because it's the kind of sad, like it's the yearning sadness, and like you did give them some happiness. So I'm happy as long as I get like some moments of joy.
Yeah. Well, and Kaz comes out really well on the other side of this. I mean, really, they both do. Anna was miserable in that house, and Kaz wasn't really living his life. You know, he was kind of stuck in the past and just focused on, he wasn't even a kid. Like he didn't have friends. And now at the end of Anna Dressed in Blood, he's got like really good friends, like friends who are with him for his entire life, obviously. Now I'm pleased to discover that they are still with him 10 years later. And
so how did that work? Did you have to reread the books to write the novella, or did you know enough?
It was, strangely enough, I did not have to reread a thing. And I had been like casting around every once in a while, just throwing my brain out there to see if Kaz wanted to tell me anything, you know, like, what are you up to? You got any scary stuff to do? Like, I could totally write something with you. And he was never there. Like, I kind of thought he might be dead. And then when they approached me to do the anniversary when they approached me to do the anniversary edition, they're like, could you do like a bonus story or something, or a deleted scene? I'm like, all those deleted scenes are like 5 laptops ago. I've got nothing, but let me see. And I threw my brain out there again, and Kaz was just like, hey, so how's it going? Yeah, you know, me and Thomas and Carmel, we're still like hanging out here. Now we do a ghost podcast. It's called Low Frequencies, you know, podcast of the dead. My mom's remarried to a guy named Brad. He sells insurance. It's fine. You know, and he just like wouldn't stop talking.
That was awesome.
And within like 5 minutes, he had caught me up on like exactly where he was in his life. And I knew that he was going to hang around for me to stuff in this haunted hotel. Like, perfect. Let me take your ghost podcast to a haunted hotel. This is going to be great.
I wonder if your subconscious was just working on that for you, just like in all the years in between. He hadn't been there, but like below the surface, you've been like just getting it ready.
I always think that my characters are just like living on a different plane. You know, they're just like in an alternate universe, just doing their thing. And then if they ever need to tell me something, they'll show up again, like he did, and had this super fun adventure in this haunted hotel. So with several other podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, to do it at the right time as well, like, well done, Cass, like you needed him. Imagine if there'd been nothing and you're like, I don't actually know where he is. There's no story there. Like,
there's no
really
story.
Great.
I would have to draw like my little stick figures. Like, here's the bonus material. Here's some stick figures.
I love your stick figures. Yeah, I mean, I'd buy that. I think you should do a comic at this point. Like, have you seen the, I don't even know where it is. I would show you it. The Crypt, is it here? Oh, no. So I have Fangs by Sarah Anderson, which I don't know whether you've read this. It is so cute.
I haven't.
You have to read it. So it is
beautiful.
It's the story of a little vampire and a little werewolf who are in a relationship, and it's just little vignettes. It's not got much plot, but it's great. But she did one called Cryptid Club that you should look at because it's super cute, and they're just like little doodles about cryptids like hanging out in the world and meeting each other, and like the Loch Ness Monster's doing his thing, and like Slender Man's there too, and it's
oh my gosh,
really
that's so
great.
Fun.
Yeah,
what's her name?
I'm gonna have to check now. I think it's Sarah. Yeah, Sarah Anderson, Cryptid Club. That's the one particularly I think you would really appreciate. And then Fangs is really cute too.
Sarah Anderson.
So
yes, I will enjoy that.
I've just consulted the list because as usual, we're just, just bouncing like we do. I really wanted to ask you about your ghost stories because I think when I was writing the Mina books, what gave me real joy was either creating vampire stories or using ones from New Orleans. And I kind of wondered what your take on like creating your whole ghost mythology was and like writing the stories. Like, how did you approach that?
Yes, that was one of my favorite aspects of Mina too. I really liked the journal entries and just like uncovering that really weird, twisted brother history. So that is fun. It's fun to do. I mean, you're right. Like it's like story within a story, right? Mm-hmm. It's just something cool that maybe you would never flesh out into a full novel, but there it is. So some of the ghost stories that are described in Anna Dressed in Blood, like if I mention it's a Thunder Bay ghost story, like the Catman, that's a true Thunder Bay ghost story. Like that. Cool. I researched a bunch of different ghost stories from Thunder Bay, Ontario, and I went to a couple of the supposedly haunted locations And I just shoved my husband out into the night. Just like, go see if something happens to you. He's like, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, I don't know. You know, if you feel anything, let me know. I'm going to be in the car. You know, and
I love how he was like the ghost hunter and you were there. I'm going to stay in the car.
Yeah,
I just thought it was the other way around.
I'm not a ghost hunter. I'm the scribe. I will record whatever happens to you for posterity.
I suppose you have to be the selfless one who stays back to tell the story. Otherwise,
someone has to live, or no one will know. So some of the stories were real ghost stories, and some of them were inspired by. There was a murderer in Iowa, I think. You can still tour his house. Like, it doesn't have any power, but you can pay to stay overnight in this Iowa farm murder house. But he murdered, I think, his whole family with like,
oh gosh.
I think in Anna, I say it's like shears, but I think it might have been an axe or a saw of some kind in real life. So some of them were inspired by actual mass murderers who just like gross. And then some of them just were because I thought they might be interesting. So, yeah.
How about, I don't think this is too much of a spoiler, the one with the cop and the hostage? Did you make that? Yeah, did you make that one? I made that one up.
That was really just scary. Because I thought it would be an interesting dichotomy if these particular ghosts who had died in this horrible manner together, like what would happen if they had to spend their eternity twisted in the same form. So that one I just made up.
Yeah, it just kind of made me stop reading and like have an actual like visceral reaction to it. It's really, really good. And I think that's what Anna really does. Like, there's moments of it like to do with cats and stuff like that where like it's like, oh, Kendare, like, how can you do this? Especially how much you love cats.
Yeah. He was my cat, though.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Tybalt was my cat, and I asked him if I could, and he was like, "Am I cute?" And I'm like, "Yeah, still." And she's like, "Okay." So I took comfort in, the fact that yes, Tybalt in the book, not so much good, but Tybalt in real life lived a very long time, and he was quite happy.
That was awesome. I didn't realize that was a real cat, actually. That's like, you've redeemed yourself a little bit there. You asked permission, so it's maybe fine. But yeah, I think I really like the fact that a publisher took a chance on it, because some of the stuff I heard early on with Mina is like, we don't know what genre this is. Like, is it a family saga? Is it like murder? Like, what is it like?
What?
Yeah, and I don't know whether, like, to me, Anna has that mixed genre feel, which I really like, but apparently some like publishers find it confusing, and I was like, okay. But yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I like Anna so much, that it's so different. Like, still, I can think of books that, like 16 Souls, I was talking to you earlier about Rosie Talbot's book, like, it has a feel of that, like with ghosts and relationships and teenagers and stuff, but it definitely isn't Anna. And like, apart from Supernatural, there isn't anything that I can kind of go, yes, there's been another book since and like it. I just think it's so unique, which is great you managed to do that. So I wanted to move on and ask you about Buffy, because we couldn't do an interview without going to Buffy.
A little bit of Buffy, yeah.
Yeah. So we were working on, I'm still working on mine, our third books in our vampire series at the same time. How did it feel to finish your Buffy trilogy? I know no spoilers whatsoever. We don't know Anger Disney, but like, how did it feel to finish it off?
It was so many emotions, because I bring back so many Buffy favorites in the third book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the end. So like, the Buffy character that you've been hoping will show up, because
yeah,
they've been missing. They're back finally.
Yes. So, yes. Okay, good. I've been waiting for
and I got to do like this really long, I'm like, look, I'm doing a really long wrap up, because for the people who've been reading and waiting for these characters to be in the same room together for so long, I want to give them those moments. Like, I need so-and-so and Spike to have their moment. I need so-and-so and Willow to have their moment. Like everybody has to have that time on screen together that we would demand, if we were actually seeing them on screen. So I warned my editor, I'm like, look, it's going to feel a little like Return of the King. There's going to be like 19 different endings.
I was thinking of the same thing, like the hour-long closing sequence. Like, on? This film, like, the light's not coming on.
Ends. Like, it's, oh, you think it's over, and then like, nope, there's a little more. We need to, you just wrap it up a little more. So I just keep like wrapping it up and wrapping it up. So, but when I finally hit that last sentence, you know, those last words, I'm like, oh, well, that's it. Like, I get really emotional writing the acknowledgments, because I'm like, this, how do you end your time in the Buffyverse? And I think I said in the acknowledgments, I'm like, you don't, you'll drag me out of here when I'm dead, you know? So, but it's going to be really bittersweet when the book comes out in April, because then it will officially be, you know, out there and over. Yeah. And it's been.
I didn't realize it's the same month as my third Mina book too. Like,
oh, is it?
Yeah.
She got moved. She was supposed to come out in January, and then they moved her to April. So okay, we should do events.
Maybe, yeah, I was thinking like we need some publisher to pay for us to do this so we can be in the same room. Yeah, I'm not quite at the point yet, I don't think, because I'm still editing it. Like, I'm not at that point of having to let go of it, so I don't know how I'll feel. But it has been difficult, like, knowing, because in my mind there could be more Mina books if I want there to be, but I've never seen there being. I am getting some slight inklings, but I'm like squashing them down for now, that there could, you know, there could be. Like you said, Cass started talking to you, like Mina did a little bit, like say, you know, there wasn't a fourth book. Like, if you want to write one, this is what it could be about. So like,
you never know. And that's the thing. I mean, 12 years later, Cass showed up. We got to have one more adventure. So Mina will never be gone. They're never gone until they're dead. And then, because we write the books that we do, they're not even gone if they're dead. You know, they can always come back.
And they do multiple times sometimes. Yeah, and I don't know. I think with the Buffy books, what makes me feel emotional as well is that I feel like you properly continued them. Like, I think there's very few people, I've sort of said this to you before, that I would trust Buffy with. And when I heard it was you, I was like, okay, fine. If it can't be me, it might as well be Kendare Blake. Like, okay, I'll let you have this one. Like, I think that you can tell you're a real Buffy fan in the way you write them. They're so true, like the characters and just the storylines and the slightly madcap quality that Buffy always had. Like, you know, the moments where you're like, everybody's just running around and there's this like demon on the loose and it's chaos and it's fun.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I think those are my favorite Buffy moments. The things that I do less well is like the really heavy Buffy moments, because I like Buffy can do it all. Like, we've talked about this before. Like episodes like The Body just live on in TV history for being one of the most
say The Body,
human.
I get like a chill through my whole body. Like, I just the moments in that, like it's chilling, isn't it?
It's astounding. The acting, the writing, that entire episode. And it's tonally different from everything else that's in the series, and yet it's quintessential Buffy. So when I was doing the books, I'm like, well, books aren't that nimble. Like, they're not, I'm going to have this part of the adventure is going to have to be more madcap. It's going to have to be a little bit more. So like, I try to sprinkle in some of the angsty teen romance stuff. You know, Frankie's involved with a 1,000-year-old demon and it's gross. And, you know, there's going to be complications with that. But for the most part, I focused on like Scooby relationships and integrating the original cast, and just having those really ridiculous, quippy, campy, you know, fun. Like, that's what these books are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anything that isn't specifically Buffy is ever going to be it, but what you wrote is as close as it possibly can be. Like, you haven't got the benefit of like Sarah Michelle Gellar's tears on screen, or like, like you can't bottle that in a book. I think that TV, just the certain things that a book can't go there, but a book can go some places that TV can't. And I think you do that in Anna completely. The emotional, like, repeated punches in the chest, and yet I'm still having a really fun time. Anna definitely feels to me like that exact what I love about Buffy is what I love about Anna as well, that it rips your heart out, but it also gives you hope and joy.
Yeah. Well, and it's still kind of funny. Like, Kaz is still funny.
He's really
there's some funny moments. Yeah, he's got the gallows humor.
That's my kind of
remember once I was talking to a group of teenage boys, and it was with the old cover. And I like I know there's a girl on the cover, but she's dead. Does that help? And they were like, oh, yeah, that helps. I'm like, you guys are sick. What's wrong with you?
It's like she rips people apart. Yeah, okay, cool. Sold.
She's not just going around in a dress, I promise. Like, she'll kill you. They're like, sweet.
Maybe that's it. Like, it doesn't.
They were like 13. It was adorable.
Yeah, the YA book that does have like that mutual levels of appeal for everyone. While we're on the subject of Buffy, I asked people on social media if anybody had any questions, and of course, some of the questions were about Buffy. So, Kirsty S on Instagram asked, "How much did you squeal when you got to write Buffy?" Like, I remember we had this conversation before, but for those who haven't heard the story, like, what happened when you got that email call?
I just periodically squeal ever since then. Just like, you know, every once in a while I just squeal.
I squeal for you, to be honest. Like, anything I see about those books on social media, I'm like, yes! Oh God, calm down.
It was surreal because I mean, at first, you know, you see the word Buffy and you're just like, you know, you just grab on. But then you just take a minute because you're like, well, Buffy, what? Like, what do they want me to do to Buffy? Because it's not mine. So I'm going to be writing someone else's idea. So I need to just calm myself, because what if the premise they have is just so horrible? and I still have to do it because I'm not going to say no, but it'll be like terrible. Yeah. And it was, the premise was really good. And they brought back all the characters. If they had asked me my wish list of 3 characters to write, Willow, Oz, and Spike would have been the ones that I wanted if I couldn't have Buffy. But not being able to have Buffy was initially that sticking point, because when these books open, Buffy's presumed dead. And I'm like, you can't kill Buffy. Like, what are you doing to me right now? People are going to hate this because, excuse me, Buffy's dead. This book is about her replacement. No. And so, like, I had to be very careful. Like, well, okay, I get why Buffy can't be on stage for this, you know, because Buffy would take up all the air in the room. That's all you would want, was for Buffy to solve the problem. So as long as I make Frankie, you know, like her niece, very much her niece, like very admiring, like in Frankie's eyes, Buffy can do no wrong, because in my eyes, Buffy can do no wrong either. So I'm like, it might be okay. And I kept like double checking with them, like, but Buffy's not really dead, right? And they would just, you know, like not say anything. And I'm like, yeah, but really not dead. And sure enough, eventually it was revealed that, you know, no, Buffy's still alive somewhere. It's just, you know, she's trapped. So new problem to solve. So after that was all set, then a little bit of dread started to come in, because after the initial happiness, it's like, I'm going to screw this up so bad. And you just start thinking, like, I said yes to this. Why did I say yes to this? I'm never going to be able to do this. What was I thinking? And by then, you know, you're in. So you just have to buck up and do it. And it turned out to be one of the most fun things I've ever written. These books, each of them wrote themselves in 3 months or less.
Wow.
Like, they drafted themselves in 3 months or less. They're all about 100,000 words, which is pretty long. But they never felt long. And even though they underwent like a lot of revisions, each one underwent at least one big round of revisions where I'm just like cutting stuff and writing new stuff. That never bothered me, because I was just writing new Buffy stuff, and I'll never get tired of writing new Buffy stuff. So yeah, I'm really going to miss these books, honestly.
It's so nice to hear you talking about it, and to hear like the imposter syndrome and stuff. Like, it's nice, but also it's like, oh, so it never actually stops, does it? Like, I'm on the 3rd book, and, you know, the anthology too, but like, how many books have you written now? If you don't know, it's a lot.
I think Champion of Fate might be 15.
Wow.
And that's just published. I mean, I've written more that haven't been published, but 15 published.
Have you written more like since Anna, or were they all pre-Anna?
No, I wrote one book called The Conservationists that never went anywhere.
Publishers.
And I really liked it.
Why are you depriving us of this? I asked because I find it so surprising. Like, I was talking to another author recently who's really popular, and she was like, oh, and these like several books that I submitted in between this book and this book that didn't get published. And I find that so surprising. Like, I can't imagine anybody reading anything you've written and going, you know, we don't we don't need this. Like, I need it. I know objectively that I need it.
Well, and I think it would happen to me more if I was a faster writer. But since I can only do like apparently one book plus one Buffy book a year, if they want something, I mean, that's what I have. So I've also, I don't know, but I'm in a situation now with after Champion of Fate came out. Champion of Fate is the first of two. The sequel comes out next year. But now I'm like, well, what do I do? And I have like an adult idea, and that's scary because I've never written adult. But this idea is solidly adult. Like, it can't be YA. There's no way I could turn it YA. There's no way. So I have to talk to my agent. Actually, I have a new agent now. My beloved agent of 12 plus years has left the business. So I'm like, it's in a bit of a transitional period. She was amazing. My new agent is also amazing. But after 12 years with the same person, it's like...
Who's your new agent?
I feel adrift.
I
don't know what to do. My new agent is Emily Van Beek.
Oh, I've heard of her.
Folio Literary. And we just started working together, but she's absolutely wonderful so far. And I'm sure I've heard nothing but good things. So.
Yeah, me too. So that has hit you at the point where you're feeling like, between books and between agents now as well. That could be a really good thing. Maybe that will give you, if you need a new direction, you're already on a new path, aren't you, with a new agent? So
so why not try something totally strange? So I think that's what I'll do.
I'm all for it. As long as there's like murder and kissing, I will follow you there.
In the adult, I don't think there's any kissing. I think there's just a whole lot of death. Okay.
If there's extra murder, you can counteract the need for kissing, so that's probably fine. And speaking of the things that have just come out, let's talk about this one briefly. I know we're talking Anna and we had a Buffy tangent, but can you tell us a little bit about this before we wrap up our chat?
Yes, thank you. Champion of Fate I called it Amazon Jedi when I was drafting it, because I was like trying to mash up the Amazons from Wonder Woman with like the Jedi Order. So it's like a mysterious order of immortal warrior women. And their task is to guide mortal heroes and guide them to their glory. So basically they make heroes out of mortal men. And the story is of a young woman who is trying to join this immortal order. She's been orphaned in a terrible slaughter and was found shortly after by two of these warriors and then trained up. And now she's just about ready to take her place with her sisters. All she has to do is guide her first hero to his first glory. And the hero that she gets assigned is like a pain in the butt. So, of course, like...
Sold.
Yeah. Just things. It has a lot of master and apprentice vibes. I love those moments in the Star Wars movies where Obi-Wan just looks at Anakin like he's some kind of idiot. And so I wanted like those master and apprentice kind of vibes in this book with my young woman and her mentor, her warrior mentor. It's got bitey horses. I love horses, and my horses always bit me, so I made the horses very bitey. And it's very epic fantasy. It's a Three Dark Crowns spinoff, but you don't have to have read Three Dark Crowns to read Champion of Fate, vice versa. There is a former Fenburn queen who is a character in this book. Cool. But whereas Three Dark Crowns is dark fantasy, like dark magical fantasy, this is epic magical fantasy. So yeah, if you're in the mood for something like, more of like the vibe of Wheel of Time and, the Trojan War, then yeah, you might like it. I
mean, I'll read it because it's yours. But I think that all of your books sound like you, even though it's very different from Anna. Like there's little details that are just you, like the bitey horses, and they kind of really think about dynamics between characters. I think that's like the Anna thing that's really lasting, isn't it? That these characters are just so real. Like Kaz is just, I don't accept that he's not a real person. Like he is. He's real in your head. He's
apparently,
yeah.
He's totally real. And now, he lives in an apartment and has a side hustle making furniture and delivering DoorDash and doing a podcast.
Yeah. I'd buy that. That's awesome.
Bless him.
Okay, so the last question that somebody asked on Instagram was so good, I figured that it was a good place to end this. So Lauren the Nerd asked, do you watch or read other horror for inspiration? And as kind of follow-up link question, is there anything lately that has terrified you that you've watched or read?
I don't read horror for inspiration. I read it because I need it. Like I love horror. I can never do without it. It was my first love. It was the first thing that I picked up as a young reader. Well, I mean, after horse books, you know, like I moved from unicorns to Stephen King, and that was the progression.
Babysitters, Sweet Valley Twins, Stephen King.
Stephen King.
Yeah.
He's made an entire generation of us. Like, does he know?
Honestly, every author interview I do, if there's any horror in their books, you go, we did an anthology panel the other day, and there were 6 of us, and they went down the line, like, which author inspired you? And we just all went, Stephen King, Stephen King, Stephen King, Stephen King. There was one of them who gave like a really obscure indie answer, and we were all very impressed because we just said it by Stephen King on repeat.
Yeah. Oh my God. It is like a masterclass. It's a masterclass in horror. If I ever need to be reminded of what horror can do, I reread it because it does everything. I mean, it's long enough to do everything for one. Exactly. Like it's a freaking 1,000 pages. So he's got the time, but he has every single different kind of scare that you can think of. He manages to pack in the pages of it. I watch a lot of scary movies too. I'm really looking forward to October starting because I'm going to try to do, at one point I used to do 31 days of horror. So I'd watch a different horror movie every night. And I don't know if I can manage that because I'm traveling for some of the month, and I should actually work. But I do like to pack in at least like 10 horror movies, like rewatch some of my favorites, so some Nightmare on Elm Street, and then pepper it in with some that I've never seen before. So I always end up finding some new favorites.
Have you watched Trick or Treat? I'm going to see if I can find... Oh, I don't have my bag to hand. I bought a really cute Trick or Treat bag. It's somewhere in this...
I have not. I saw that in your video the other day. The little, like the... And I've never even...
Oh, it's ridiculous. You know, like films that go, like they're so bad that they come out into good. Like, I'm not sure if it's good or if it's just so bad it's good, but he's a little sack boy who goes around and kills people if they don't celebrate Halloween to his specifications. So...
Well, that sounds nice.
Yeah.
Is it on like Netflix or anything?
I think I watched it on Amazon. So yeah, you need to check all the streaming services. That's the one I would recommend. Okay. So is there anything
I will watch that for sure.
Yes, watch that. It's good. He's like cute but evil, and I think that is kind of my favorite thing. Like evil and cute together is like Vampire Willow. Like it's the kind of pinnacle. Like if they're cute and evil.
It's a perfect pairing.
Yes. Yeah. Like Nightmare Before Christmas, like cute and scary is just, if you can do the 2 things together, it's like genius.
Did they ask? I can't remember the rest of that question. If they ask if I had something that was scary?
Yes, anything that, because I know you've read and watched a lot of horror. Like, what has actually scared you?
A book, like it scares me in moments, but I'm not like Joey from Friends. I never have to put a book in the freezer. I just finished reading. My husband and I actually were reading this out loud together. So it's a collection of short stories by Joe Hill, who's Stephen King's son.
Yeah.
And we finished it last night. And the last story, called You Are Released, is about multiple different experiences on an airplane while underneath like World War III has started. So they're just watching like nukes go by. And I found that extremely disturbing. Like, we got done and it was bedtime, and I'm like, I don't like this. I don't want to go to sleep. I don't want to fly to New York on Saturday. Like, this has ruined.
That was bad timing.
This has ruined my travel plans.
I started watching Fight Club on a plane once, and then got to the plane crashing scene. I was like, shit, I forgot about this. Like, no.
Oh yeah.
I forgot that there's a bit where he imagines a plane going down when he's on a plane. This was wrong, and I could see all the people around me like, why is she watching this? So
this is not.
Sorry, everyone.
I know when, like, with horror movies, they don't generally scare me too bad when I'm watching them, but I will know when one really scared me if I get scared of it a couple of days later. Like if I'm just alone in my house and I'll just oh, that movie was pretty good. Have you seen It Follows?
Yes. Yeah. That's one of those where you say it and the shivers go down my arms when you I think of that.
So when I watched it, I was just enjoying it because it's a clever premise and it's just a smart movie. But then days after, I like walked into a room and I'm like, there are no multiple exits from this room. I can't be here. I need another way out if something follows me in.
Yeah, I was like that when I saw Final Destination when I was 15. A big group of us went to see it at the cinema, and we walked home together, like clutching onto each other, and we were scared of like every lamppost, every drain. Like it really, that film infected me for weeks afterwards. I couldn't like simple household objects. I was scared of my computer. I was scared of like turning on the light. I love that. I do when a horror film really gets you. Like, have you read Frozen Charlotte by Alex Bell? Creepy little dead dolls. I think you'd really like it. It's really scary. Basically a girl goes to stay in a house, and there are these tiny little Frozen Charlotte dolls, which are supposedly these dolls that were presented in coffins for like little girls to play with. And it's so clever. It's based on this whole mythology, but there's just these creepy little dolls that skitter around the house. And for about a week after reading that, I kept seeing like little white blurs in my peripheral vision, like that. I know that wasn't a dead doll, but I'm still a bit uncertain, and that to say that it's something that I know objectively cannot be real, it terrified me. And I like that. I'm always searching for the kind of horror that will do that really gets under my skin. So that would be my other top tip.
Yeah, I love smart horror. I love horror that means something else. I mean, it just has to be either a really clever slasher concept or a really smart horror with really well-drawn characters. I'm very picky with my horror. Like I think Scream was, excellent. It did a good job with both plot and character, and it was, self-referential, aware. I loved The Babadook because it was metaphorical and also just beautifully shot, beautifully acted, delightfully creepy. But yeah, I'm having a hard time thinking of like new horror, like horror that I've seen this year. I watched Cobweb a couple of weeks ago, and it had like a couple of nods to The Babadook in it, which I appreciated. But as far as it itself, I'm like, well, this is fun, but it's not. It wasn't like super scary. Did you see Cobweb? It was going around.
I haven't watched anything really this year of any kind because I've been trying to edit 2 books and an anthology. Oh, yeah. And so because my writing time is still, I'm getting a little bit more because my son's just gone to nursery, as I mentioned before we started filming this. But yeah, generally it's every night I just, sit down at 7 p.m. and write for a couple of hours. So yeah, my TV watching has just gone, and movies have gone way downhill this year. I need to catch up on everything. At some point I'm going to have like a month off and just watch like as much stuff as I missed.
Like start a list. Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, at some point I'll have time off.
Is Mina 3 available for pre-order yet, or is it too soon?
Not yet, no, but the cover is almost ready. So I think when the cover is ready, they're going to probably put it up in pre-order. So I reckon around Halloween it should be ready. So yep, we need to get our heads together and see if we can think of something fun. Because I know we thought about doing something for like the Mina 2 and Mina and Buffy 2, but I don't think we quite crossed paths at that point. So yeah, let's try and do it for the big bang at the end for both of them.
Yeah. Do you know what date in April?
They usually go early April with mine. How about you?
I think it's April 9th.
Oh, yeah, I think mine might be like as close to the 1st as it can be. So yeah, it'll probably be within a week of each other. So that's so exciting.
That'll work. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll figure something out.
Yes, we will.
We'll either go big and do in person, or we'll go small and do virtual. But we'll do something.
Yes.
We have to mark the occasion.
Cool. Yeah, it's big, Mina, isn't it?
And yeah.
Oh, well, I think that's probably a good point to say the end of the interview as well, because as usual, I've kept you for far too long. I feel like we could talk for hours. I always really enjoy it. I think we have very similar, like, not so niche interests, but like, I don't know, some of them are pretty niche. I always appreciate you coming on. I know it always embarrasses
similar, just mainstream vampire interests. Yes.
Yeah. But if you rewound like 12 years, I never would have dreamt that I would be talking about the books I'd written to you. It just still seems utterly surreal. Like occasionally I have a moment where it's like, yes, we're friends and we talk to each other, but it's still like, you are generally one of my favorite authors. So it's really amazing to actually be able to complain about writing to you and
thank you
and say the good stuff about writing. Yeah.
Yes, it's really delightful to find writers who you like as people and then are equally delighted by their writing. So when I read Mina, it's kind of like, I read Mina and like, I know I'm going to like this person. Like this book is like my personality. So she must, be equally cool. And then you are, which is...
Oh, thank you. I don't think I've ever been called cool before, so thanks for that.
Oh.
I'm like, maybe I'm so nerdy that I've like popped out on the other side and become cool. Is that how it happens? Like when you get a bit older,
is
like
cool. Like that's what I've appreciated with this coming generation is they've
yeah.
made nerdiness like very cool. So
yeah,
it's too bad we weren't like coming up in this generation because I think
I
we would have
know.
been super cool.
Yeah, definitely wasn't at the time, but we're cool now. I feel like we've you
Right.
know, we've come into our own now with our like, you know, creepy rooms of stuff and creepy books that we write. Like we're doing all right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Kendare. Thank you, everybody who has watched. I really appreciate the support. You should read Kendare's books if you haven't already. We've talked about lots of them, so I'm sure there's something in there for you. And that's it. They're wrapping up the discussion about this month's YA book club, and hopefully I'll see you all on the channel soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.